Thank you, Saul. For 4 years, I've been glibly telling all the storytellers, don't worry, it's 15 minutes, be fabulous, entertaining, engaging, open, candid, it'll be great. And then today, I thought to myself, what have I been doing to these people? It's terrible. I take what Nell Merlino said about find yourself a good fella pretty seriously. And there are 3 people in this room who have changed my life. The first is my husband, Jeremy, who really is the rock of my life. The second is Michael Samuelson, who you heard this morning. Exactly 4 years ago, almost to the day, Mike got up on stage at BIF 1 and told the story of his breast cancer. And exactly 3 days later, my husband got in the shower and decided to lather up and give himself a testicular exam. That's what we call it at Catholic school. So that's him right there too. Right. So he tells me this part now. I wasn't there with him. That he felt something strange, and he went to work that day, and like all men, he was like, didn't do anything about it, just kind of lived his life. The next morning, he couldn't ignore it. And I remember I was laying in bed and I heard him say, baby, can you come here for a minute? And I went in, and sure enough, his testicles were enlarged. And he said that he remembered the words of Mike from 3 days earlier, and he said, I'm going to go see a doctor today. And 3 days later, he was at Rhode Island Hospital having surgery where they were removing a malignant tumor from his testicles. And today, he is celebrating just a few days his 4 years of being cancer-free. And Mike Samuelson changed my life. So, thank you, Mike. And of course, the third fella who saved my life is none other than Saul Kaplan, who has given me an extraordinary opportunity to do what I do every day. Most people think of the Business Innovation Factory, and they think of this event because it's our most successful, forward-looking thing that we do. But really, there's a lot of work that we do every day that has nothing to do with fun gatherings, and this work happens in our student experience labs. And this is what I get to do all day. And so I think I found a good fella in my friend Saul Kaplan. So these 5 beautiful people. This isn't clip art, although I know it's so gorgeous, it looks like it is. But this is Sarah and Jose and Henry and Valerie and JC. And they are 5 people that we have met who are desperately searching for something that I'm going to guess most of us in this room already have. And something that I'm going to guess we also all take for granted every single day. These 5 people are desperately seeking a college education. And they are facing barriers and hurdles that are significant, serious, sometimes comical, and really interesting to hear. We are not the first people to talk about post-secondary education and how our country is falling behind. And when you listen to these conversations that are happening all around us about transforming our education system, you'll hear a lot of great ideas. There's a lot of people in this room that I know personally that have some really transcendent ideas about how to improve college education. But what you never hear is the voice of the student. It's like a cocktail party, and they're not there. And I think it's time they got invited. And lucky for me, and I should preface this, the reason why they're not there is because the system mostly sucks. And the only thing that sucks more than the system is the experience that the student has inside of that system. So we set out on a journey earlier this spring to bring the student voice back to the center. And the Lumina Foundation for Education gave the Business Innovation Factory a grant to launch the second of our experience labs, which is the Student Experience Lab. And in this lab, we have this tremendous opportunity to bring the student back to the center of the conversation and bring visibility to the student voice, which is really missing. Our goal is to use this new insight into the student experience to accelerate our appetite for experimentation and to accelerate our ability to think and develop new ways to deliver value to these students who so desperately want and need a college education. So we have spent the last 3.5, 4 months working with students at more than 40 schools across the country, students from all walks of life and at all stages of their academic career. We've talked to high school students getting ready to go to college, thinking about it, planning it. We've talked to students that are in school now, all different races, from all different socioeconomic positions. And we've also talked to students that have fallen out, dropped out. We call it stopping out. I think dropping out implies that most of these students fall out of the system because they don't care. Most of them stop out for other reasons. And we also talk to older learners, which in our, if you look at our economic development prospect, getting a lifetime education, creating opportunities for older learners to come back into the system is imperative. And we did it the way we do things at BIF. We walk around with a video camera and an audio recorder, and we invade people's private lives and ask them incredibly personal, candid questions. And then we tell stories about it, like my story about my husband and his testicles. It's just what we do. And so what have we learned after spending 4 months talking to hundreds of students from all over the country? We've learned that students are making really bad choices, and they're making decisions based on little or no information. They are coming out of school maxed out on debt, and the schools that provide these services, God bless them, they are struggling to meet these demands. And they are full of intelligent, caring teachers and administrators who want to do the right thing. But these schools are daisy-chained together in a system that's just broken. It's antiquated, it's broken. And even worse, if students do get into school, most of them don't get out. So 50% of students who go to college drop out, and 33% of them do so in their first year. So even if you get over all of the hurdles to get into school, the odds of you getting out are low. So this is something that one of our researchers slid across my desk earlier this summer. I can't even use Excel. I have no idea what this was. But they told me this was an insight matrix. And I said to my eyes rolled back in my head, and I felt like a jargon-spewing vandal. Was that the word? But it's actually pretty genius. So what they were able to do was take 100 hours of video, parse it out to find the insights about the student experience, then place them into a relational matrix and score the relationships to find clusters of experience, themes in the experience that seem to be significant drivers of the experience across demographics. So this isn't about poor kids or rich kids or minority students. This is about all students. And using this approach, they were able to pull that data out. And I did stare at it for a really long time before I got it. But then when I got it, I really got it. So what I did, because this is what I do, I then took that beautiful insight matrix filled with all that depth and complexity, and I reduced it to this, which is more my style. And we have winnowed down about 5,000 data points that students from across the country have shared with us into these 9 themes. These are aspects of the experience, again, that we think are some of the most significant drivers of quality of education and degree attainment. I can't go through all these with you today, but if you go to our website, which our guys stayed up for the last 3 nights in a row making live, you can see it all, and I'll give you the URL at the end, and I hope you will take a look. But I want to talk to you just about a few things that I think will, I hope, inspire you to get involved and to help us build a network of experimenters around this problem. So this is Charlie, and I mentioned earlier that students are making really bad choices based on no information. And I want you to listen to Charlie talk a little bit about how he picked his school.
I was lucky to have good college counseling. I was particularly lucky to have a college counselor that actually liked me. That's always the trick. I've heard from so many of my friends, my college counselor had X amount of students, but they actually liked me or they hated me, and that can certainly inform the decision. And they helped get me a bit, but they were obviously working with hundreds of other students. And so for me, it was mostly online resources, I think, that I ultimately consulted. I guess that's taken as an assumption at this point, but even in the early 2000s, not necessarily. So I was just going through, I remember, I think it was like Thanksgiving of junior year, I was just online going through hundreds of websites and being so frustrated because I couldn't distinguish them at all. I remain somewhat cynical about the way that colleges present themselves, and the way that they are forced to present themselves in certain ways to match certain standards, so that on Newsweek they go boop, 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 you know.
Okay, so it's hard to feel bad for Charlie, right? He's attractive. He's here somewhere too, I think. He's articulate, and surprised Charlie landed on his feet. Super ambitious. He figured it out. But did you hear what he said? He based one of the most important decisions of his life on websites. Things that people like me make, and we don't know anything about anything. So I want you to look at that same story now, but through the lens of a similar student who was in the same age group making the same decision.
So why NYU? Because I always wanted to go to school in New York eventually in the future. And I don't know, they had like a medical school, and that NYU is a really good school too. So that's one of those.
And what makes it a really good school, or why do you think it's a good school?
That's what the website says. It's like everyone tells me it's like a really good, like, I think Ivy League school. I think that's what it's called. But yeah, everyone just tells me it's pretty good and stuff.
If Kayla goes to NYU, she's going to leave school with a debt that exceeds the full value of the mortgage on my 4-bedroom house. And she's making that decision because her friends told her it was good and she went to a website, right? It's not the right way to make these decisions. This has a little something to do with it, but it's only part of the problem. But I can't resist the shock and awe statistic, right? Here's the next set of that. So let's say you are Kayla, and you do manage to get into school, and you get into your dream school. Then what? What are the next set of barriers you have to overcome? I'm not going to even read it out loud, but just take a look at that, right? So this is Jan. And Jan began thinking very seriously about school when his very, very good friend went to jail for murdering someone in a gang fight. And this motivated Jan to really focus on bettering his life through a higher education. And he got into a classy little school north of Boston where he was going to study business.
The mental piece is tough for me. The academic piece is even worse because of the fact that when I left to school, I knew I was going to struggle like right away. Right off the bat, I knew I was going to struggle. And one of the subjects I knew I was going to struggle was with math. But I ended up struggling pretty much in every subject. Because I don't know if you guys, well, a friend of mine, I'm not going to put his name out there because, I don't know if he, but he said to me once, you do realize you're competing at a race that's 300 feet long and your opponent's already 200 feet ahead of you.
Right. So, okay, you get into school, you manage to make a good choice, you get into school, and then when you get there, you're 200 feet behind in a 300-foot race, right? And then, of course, there's the money problem. For a lot of students, 70% of students actually depend on student loans to go to college. And this kills me, that 30% of college graduates delay having children because of their student loans. I mean, that tells you something about our values and about the kind of burden that we're putting on students when they're coming out of this system. And students aren't whining. We talked to so many students, and they weren't whining, they were dreaming, and they were in the process of dreaming about what their future would look like. And what you have, though, is a very hard balance. This is Valerie, and I know you may be getting videoed out, but I want you to just hear a little bit from her.
Time and money. I mean, even though I'm working 2 jobs, it's still really tight. Some days, some months, I'm like scraping pennies and borrowing from one to pay the other. But next quarter, I start full-time clinicals, and it's going to be 40 hours a week. 40 hours a week, 5 days a week. So that's going to be tricky. I'm going to have to cut back on the hours that I'm working or work around it somehow, but it's not going to be easy. So that's one thing that's a little bit tough.
So now I think the reason why 50% of all students drop out of college is probably getting a little clearer, but there's one more hurdle that you need to clear. So let's say you are Valerie, but you can't make your payment that next semester and you need to stop out for a semester and go make some money. It's hard. And facing that every day takes a lot of students out of their game, and a lot of them don't make it back. And so if you get through it in the end and you make it, you may not get a lot for your investment. You may not feel like you got a lot for your investment. So where does that leave you? And I think what I take from this is that this idea of the 4-year college education is a fallacy. We're doing a huge disservice to the students in our country, young and old, from urban areas and suburban areas alike, in not supporting them in making really important decisions about education. And we have a lot of thinking to do about how we are going to change the way we do business and the way we're going to organize around students to deliver them the education that they need. So, not enough students get in, even fewer get out. And many of the students that do get out with a degree are broke and unsatisfied. So, okay, that's all the depressing stuff, right? I know I should go back to the whole shower scene. You guys were laughing at that point in time. But don't believe me, believe them. And one of the things that's really important about the work that we're doing is that I think elevating the student voice in this conversation is a really important first step to opening up new channels to experimentation, to innovation. And I think until we make a seat at the table for students, a permanent seat where they're not patronized and we don't sort of just ghettoize them and think, oh, I did a survey, I totally know what my students want, I don't think we're really going to make the changes we need to make. So the team now has a huge task ahead of them. They've laid this foundation. They've collected a huge amount of primary data. You can go to our website. You can see what we call an experience map, which goes through all of those themes and uses video and pictures and text to try to help you understand the experience from the perspective of the student. And then between now and January, the team will be working to take all of those observations and insights and organize them in what we call an opportunity map, which is really just a short list of places where we need to today start to construct and explore experiments where we can start to deliver new value to those students by rethinking how we align all of our educational services. One huge tangential benefit of doing this part of the work and taking time to do it so thoroughly is that we have also been able to uncover a very rich network of champions who have enough chutzpah to put some skin in the game and actually start to throw away the old model and think about how they themselves can transform their schools and deliver better services to the students. And so then January will be the next big reveal. And I would be remiss if not to give a huge shout out to the people that make all of this work possible every day. Notably, Chris Finlay, who's been leading the design team, James, who does all the digital media processing, all the videos that you'll see on our website, Jeff, who is also doing AV here today. He's a champ. Nayeli and Alex, who have done a lot of the on-the-ground research. And I said I would give it to you, so there it is. But if you go to the Business Innovation Factory homepage, you can find it right from there. And that's it. That's the other man in my life. Sorry.